The Mercedes Vito is a van that knows its business. This revised version offers a more efficient range of more powerful Euro 5 compliant engines, a fresh face, a smarter cabin, revised chassis settings and increased payload capacity. As a result, Stuttgart's medium-sized panel van contender looks better equipped than ever to take the fight to an increasingly impressive array of Ford Transit and Vauxhall Vivaro-sized rivals. Now, one of the things that you learn early on in business is that the cheapest options aren't always the best ones, and that the way you deliver your goods says plenty about them. Both things explain the appeal of the Mercedes-Benz of medium-range vans, this model, the Vito, which slots in just below the larger Sprinter model in the German brand's LCV lineup. Over 1.1 million examples have been sold since the Vito's original launch back in 1996. But in a tougher, more eco-conscious commercial market, this design needs more than just badge and build quality if it's to stave off competition from a whole host of maybe less prestigiously badged, but arguably more complete rivals. Hence the improved Vito that we're looking at here. Smarter, more practical, better to drive, and crucially, less costly to run. All of which it will need to deliver if it's to be a credible alternative to tough rivals as diverse as the Vauxhall Vivaro Renault Traffic design, the Fiat Scudo, Peugeot Expert and Citroën Dispatch collaboration, the Volkswagen Transporter and of course the ubiquitous Ford Transit. Now, all these alternatives claim to match this Vito's all-round excellence for less money. But Mercedes reckons that it won't take operators long behind the wheel to appreciate the difference that the three-pointed star can make. Let's put their claims to the test. Now, slide behind the wheel and it's immediately obvious that this is going to be rather different to the usual LCV driving experience. The high-set driving position might be familiar to commercial vehicle users, but a multifunction steering wheel lifted straight from Mercedes' C-Class luxury saloon certainly won't be. This is a cabin crafted to please people spending £35,000 or more on Mercedes' luxury Viano people carrier, so it goes without saying that to a van user it'll feel very nice indeed. The cabin seats are a little firmer than the norm, but they do offer very good under-thigh support, as well as good support in the small of your back, all of which bodes well for long-distance comfort. But just how long a trip you'd want to undertake in a Vito will depend very much upon the engine you choose. The engine that forms the backbone of the range is a redesigned Euro 5 version of Mercedes' stalwart 2.1-litre four-cylinder common rail diesel, as used in the larger Sprinter model. It's an engine that's already gained a good reputation for performance and economy, and one that almost uniquely for a four-cylinder LCV diesel is fitted with balancer shafts to eliminate vibration and improve what were already class-leading levels of refinement. As before, this unit is provided in 3 states of tune, the options beginning with the 95 brake horsepower 110 CDI variant that I'm driving here. It feels a bit faster than the quoted 18.1 second rest to 60 sprint time would suggest, mainly thanks to a useful 250 newton meters of torque that gives a very wide operating range of between 1,000 and 4,000 revs, and should mean that this variant is quite sufficient for urban-based users who aren't carrying especially heavy loads or tackling longer trips. Most businesses, though, will want a van that's able to do both, so we'll be looking more closely at the 2 more powerful 4-cylinder CDI diesel derivatives, the 113 CDI and the 116 CDI, developing either 136 or 163 brake horsepower and able to sprint from rest to 60 in as little as 11.1 seconds. Now, the prodigious pulling power that you get from these 2 more powerful 4-cylinder diesel units, either 310 or 360 newton meters, well, that would be about as much as you'd get from competitive van ranges. But mindful of the fact that it has to also appeal to a more car-orientated, people-carrying audience, and bearing in mind that many Vito sales are retail rather than fleet-based. Well, this Mercedes range goes a bit further. There's a V6 diesel option as well, developing so much pulling power, 440 Newton meters, that it has to be channeled through a standard automatic gearbox. Now, the Stuttgart engineers have developed this V6 to put out as much as 258 brake horsepower, but most British buyers will be quite happy with the 224 brake horsepower developed by the 122 CDI model that's capable of getting from rest to 60 in as little as 9.1 seconds. So overall, what are Vito models like to drive? Well, some writers have criticised the foot-operated handbrake, but I must admit I rather like it. It's another upmarket touch. The 6-speed manual gearbox that's standard on all 4-cylinder CDI Vito variants also has the same precise, well-engineered approach. It can be a little notchy on first acquaintance, but it's lovely to use over prolonged use. Mercedes calls this transmission Eco Gear, labelling that refers to the way that its ratios are widely spaced for efficient running. And it has a short first gear for snappier, fully loaded hill starts, and a longer striding top to massage refinement and economy on motorway trips. Around town, it's also helpful to note that with an overall height of just 1.9 metres, then every Vito with a standard roof should be able to fit into an ordinary garage, limbo beneath height restrictors in multi-storey car parks, or emerge unscathed from car washes. And over bumps and around corners, well, as usual, the type of load that you're carrying does make quite a difference. And if that load happens to be people rather than packages, as would likely be the case if you'd opted for one of the rear-seated dual liner or travel liner versions, then you'll want the ride to be softer and more cosseting than would be the case if you'd gone for a panel van like this one. So the fully reconfigured suspension and chassis setup has been adapted to suit the remit of each individual Vito model, with detailed changes from everything from the spring rates to the support bearings and the strut towers, everything from the dampers to the anti-roll bars and the bearings. And the end result of all this, well, it might be a slightly firmer ride than you're used to, but it'll be one that you'll quickly adapt to and appreciate. It's very supple and well controlled. There's also the fact to consider that this vehicle, rather unlike most of its competitors, is rear rather than front driven. So that'll mean that it'll offer slightly more rewarding handling than you might be used to, and it'll certainly mean that it has a tighter turning circle. The face of this improved Vito has a chunkier, more robust look that's more in keeping with Mercedes' luxury car lineup. The simpler two-slat grille, for example, is flanked by restyled headlamps that feature wider reflectors for improved nighttime vision and incorporate daytime running lights and front fog lamps. If you are going to be doing a lot of driving at night, you might also want to consider the optional bi-xenon headlamps with their cornering function that also incorporate daytime LED running lamps and headlamp washers, both useful on a murky winter's day. The restyled bumper has a grained finish, and if you want your Vito to look even smarter, you can specify it with a high gloss paint finish. More importantly, Mercedes has pulled off the neat trick of shrinking the size of the door mirrors so you don't have to fold them so often going through narrow spaces, yet somehow at the same time widening their field of vision. The Vito's wide door opening and well-placed step mean that getting in is a simple enough manoeuvre. Once seated aloft, you'll find a 3-abreast cab that's closer than ever to Mercedes-Benz passenger car standards, thanks to the introduction of new fabrics, the option of artificial leather, and the adoption of an anthracite-based colour scheme for the interior. It helps that the steering wheel isn't set at such a bus-like angle that you'll find in some competitors, and further car-like cues are provided by a neatly presented centre console with a reshaped gear stick protruding out from beneath it. It's a thoughtful, uncomplicated layout that looks great, feels great, and is really a pleasure to use, especially since wider functioning push buttons have replaced the previous rocker switches on the upper part of the centre console. All very smart, but when it comes to carriage space for the everyday items that'll tend to clutter up your cab, map books, McDonald's wrappers, cans of drink, well, I have to say that this cabin isn't exactly overflowing with stowage options, though you do get useful bottle holders in the doors. But there are no really clever touches, work tables that you can fold down the passenger seat to reveal, or clipboard holders that spring up into your line of vision. There aren't even any drinks can holders that are easy to reach from the driver's seat, just these indentations on the glove box lid. The Vito's rivals get the better of it in this respect, though you do get this useful top compartment on the centre of the upper part of the dash that'll hold most of your everyday paperwork. And of course it's all beautifully built, solid and well constructed. The Spanish Vittoria manufacturing plant has done well here. Squeaks and rattles, there simply aren't any. List pricing suggests that you'll be paying somewhere in the £17,000 to £30,000 bracket, excluding VAT, for your Vito, depending on the body style and options that you choose. Now, that's going to represent a premium over equivalent rivals like the Ford Transit, the Vauxhall Vivaro, Renault Traffic Design, and the Fiat Scudo, Citroën Dispatch and Peugeot Expert collaboration. But it'll be the same kind of money that you're looking at paying for a comparable Volkswagen Transporter. And all of these rivals fail to match this Mercedes' high residual values, and many of them also can't beat its whole life costs. As for the Vito model range, well, a choice of standard or high roof heights you'd expect, but more unusual in this class is the option of up to 3 body lengths: compact, long or extra long, and with permissible gross vehicle weights of between 2.8 and 3.2 tonnes. Plenty of space and heft then for the seriously hefty cargoes that this van can now deal with, anything from 4.65 to 6.49 cubic metres. In exercising all that capacity, operators will very often want to avoid the entry-level 95 brake horsepower 110 CDI variant that I've got here, which offers 250 newton meters of torque, in favour of the 136 or 163, 113 or 116 CDI models, or indeed even the 224 brake horsepower 122 CDI V6 diesel range topper. The parallel range of people-carrying Vitos offers a choice of a dual liner, essentially this panel van with a rearward seat, and the travel liner, which is really an upmarket minibus with space for up to 9 people. If you want something plusher still to carry people in, then Mercedes' prestigious Viano people carrier is essentially a Vito travel liner with a few extra trimmings. But then all Vito models are reasonably well equipped, with a height and reach adjustable multifunction steering wheel, electric windows, front fog lamps, power steering, a Speedtronic variable speed limiter, remote central locking and an immobiliser. Bluetooth and an AUX connection, well, they're both standard, and there's an upmarket range of stereos with voice control for the CD, the radio and the sat-nav. Plus, in the Vito Travelliner models, there's a range of rear seat entertainment systems from which to choose on the options list. Safety-wise, you get ESP stability control and ASR acceleration skid control on all models, as well as anti-lock brakes with brake assist to maximise their effectiveness, and a clever feature that flashes the rear lights in an emergency stop to warn following motorists. Tick the box for the factory-fitted trailer coupling, and you also get the TSA trailer stability system. Now, twin front bags are fitted to all rear-seated models, but panel vans like this one only get a driver's bag included in the standard tally. But, as you'd expect, passenger, side and curtain bags are all available on the options list. Travel liner and dual liner rear-seated models also get Isofix child seat fastenings for the rear seats. And so to the business end. Now, throw up the rear tailgate, and the most complicated engineering aspect of this vehicle probably won't jump out at you. namely the fact that though, unlike many of its rivals, this van is rear-wheel driven, the engineers have still managed to package all the mechanicals under the floor in such a way that it won't impinge on a rear loading height that can be made even more convenient by opting for the extra cost air suspension system that includes an automatic levelling control for the rear axle. One legacy of the rear-wheel drive packaging is that the spare wheel and the jack have both had to be mounted within the loading bay, but they don't impinge significantly upon the space available. Now, ultimate carrying capacity depends, of course, on your choice of body length, and there are three in this case. The compact, which is 4,763 millimetres long, and the long and extra long body styles, which add an extended rear overhang to boost total length to either 5,008 or 5,238 millimetres. Now, the compact and long body styles sit on a standard 3,200 millimetre wheelbase, but the extra long body shape adds a section between the front and rear wheels to boost that to 3,430 millimetres. If it's ultimate cargo capacity you want, though, you'll need to find somewhere to park the high roof model. It boosts rear loading height up from the 1,902 millimetres you get in this compact model to 2,328 millimetres, and it boosts total load volume to an impressively cavernous 6.49 cubic metres. That compares with the hardly bijou 4.65 cubic metres that you get in this compact version. Permissible gross vehicle weights range between 2.8 and 3.2 tonnes. That means corresponding payload levels of from 800 kilograms for this smallest Vito to 1,330 kilograms for the largest. But one dimension is common to all Vito models, and that's the 1,277 millimetre width that you get between these wheel arches. Just enough to enable you to slide in a standard Euro pallet, which is something that you can also do through these sliding twin side doors. Now, to keep your loads in situ, there are 6 tie-down points around the load area floor and a certain amount of protective panelling, but that won't really compensate for a full ply lining kit that's really necessary to keep the interior properly free from scrapes and dents. You've got a full-length bulkhead if it should all slide forward to protect the cab, and this is very useful little compartment just under the cab seating into which you could put pipes, bits of timber and other lengthy items that you may not have been able to fit in the main load bay. Now, as the mileage stacks up, keeping running costs down will of course be a major priority for potential owners. People who'll appreciate the assist service computer that's standard on all Vito models and is able to calculate when a garage visit might be required based on your vehicle's actual usage. Now, it's reckoned that the interval between servicing for oil changes will be around 18,750 miles, but it can be longer depending on the frequency of use and the individual driving style of the person using the vehicle. You get a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty as standard, and there's 12 years of anti-corrosion, anti-perforation protection. When it comes to residual values, this Mercedes is predictably class-leading. Independent specialists Quick Car Cost reckon that after 4 years and 80,000 miles, your Vito will still be worth around 24.2% of what you paid for it. In comparison, most rivals fail to break the 20% barrier. As for day-to-day running costs, well, these have been improved by about 15% in terms of frugality and CO2 emissions across the revised Vito engine lineup. Now, in the case of this compact 110 CDI entry-level model, that means 36.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 206 grams per kilometre of CO2. But it doesn't end there. It's possible to see the figures for this variant improved to 38.1 miles to the gallon and 195 grams per kilometre, matching the Peugeot, Citroën and Fiat class leaders, or indeed 40.9 miles to the gallon and 182 grams per kilometre if you go for the pokier but paradoxically more frugal Vito 113 and 116 CDI variants. All of that is possible if you opt to have your Mercedes wear a discreet blue efficiency badge just below the windscreen pillar. The badge work indicates a series of eco measures that are standard on passenger carrying Vitos, but unfortunately optional across the rest of the range. Still, Mercedes claims that they're unique in the van segment, and they're certainly very far-reaching, including, as they do, a start-stop function to cut the engine when you don't need it, waiting at the lights or in urban jams, as well as battery management, low rolling resistance tyres, an eco-power steering pump, a gear shift indicator, a controlled fuel pump, and various mechanical modifications. Now, thus equipped, even the potent 122 CDI variant is capable of 33.6 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 221 grams per kilometre of CO2. Now, beyond blue efficiency, the next step is electric power, something that Mercedes-Benz has been pioneering in vans since 1972. Now, the result of all that development is the Vito E-Cell model, a variant based on the lengthiest standard roof Vito that manages to boast an impressive operating range of up to 130 kilometres from its high-capacity lithium-ion drive batteries. Now, the biggest compliment I could pay this Vito would be to suggest it to be the least van-like van I've driven to date. Transit class designs don't usually also have to function as luxury upmarket people carriers, as this one does, and the difference in build excellence is obvious as soon as you take a seat behind the wheel. But nice though it is to have a feeling of quality behind the wheel of one of your company's LCVs, that doesn't pay the business bills. So Mercedes has looked at the best that its competitors can offer and borrowed high technology from its luxury car lineup in order to match them. The result is a benchmark among vans that you can buy with head as well as heart, and one that can carry heavier loads with more speed, less noise, greater comfort, sharper handling, reduced fuel consumption and cleaner emissions. Medium-range transit class customers will always have cheaper options, of course, but nearly all are lacking this van's one most crucial ingredient: star quality.